Okay, today is the 16th or 17th of October 2015, and this video is called, and I can't think of a way to explain it simply, and it's called How to Talk About Bad Cards in a Good Way, a way that is liberating for the questioner so they can deal with the difficulty shown by the reverse card or by the bad card, but they don't get trapped by it or they don't get sidetracked into a dead end and they give up on life. That's what this video is about. And it began, or the idea came from, somebody sent me an email about a past, present and future spread they had done for a woman who wanted to know about her love life. And the card for the future was the Nine of Cups reversed. And the reader would have been happier if the Nine of Cups had been upright, because that card is the wish card, but it was reversed. So the reader was thinking, and she had to tell the woman, it's not going to happen exactly the way you want it because the wish card is reversed. Or she isn't going to get what she wants immediately or right away, but she's going to have to face disappointment first. And that was kind of difficult to say to the woman because the woman was there wanting to hear good news. And this happens with a lot of people. They come wanting good news, but what do you do if you have to tell them something awkward? So that's why this video is about how do you give bad news, or how do you talk about difficulties or disappointments that people have in their lives, or to do with the question that they've asked. So that led me to think there are two types of questions, or two types of questioners. Because somebody can come along and they can ask, what's going to happen with my business, for instance? But they're asking that question so they can make adjustments if they're going to be necessary. Or maybe the cards will show, what comes up through the cards will give them ideas about things they might have ignored, or something they forgot about to do with the business. So by hearing about these weaknesses or things they'd forgotten, they're in a stronger position to experience the success that they want for the business. Right? And that's okay. That's one type of questioner. There's another type of questioner, though, and I would guess that it's the majority of people who come to the tarot because they're stuck, or they're worried, or they're anxious, or they haven't found solutions anywhere else. So as a last resort, they're looking to the tarot. Or maybe as a first resort, they're looking to the tarot. But they ask about their future, but they're asking out of doubt or fear, or they want permission to do something that they want to do, or they're looking for approval, or they want to make sure that the cosmos agrees with them so they can relax and they know that they're not doing something that the gods or deities would disapprove of, right? They want permission, they want approval. They have doubts in their own mind, and doubt, as I mentioned in other videos, comes from a root that is the number 2, right? TWO. So it's a bit, when you have a doubt, you have two minds, or you have two or more thoughts that take you in different directions. So if people who come to the tarot and asking out of fear or out of doubt, how can we get them to have one mind, or have no mind and be in harmony with themselves? And the solution, I think, and this is what this video is about, is cause and effect. So if I hold a cup, I meant to have one, but I don't. If I hold a cup and let it go, right, you know it's going to hit the floor. So if I don't want the cup to hit the floor, I don't let go. So we know how to change the effect of the cup hitting the floor by changing the cause. And the cause in this case would be don't let go of the cup. So we know this is cause and effect, and we know this, and we work with it all the time. But it can be more difficult to, it works in our life as well, but it can be harder to know the cause with life's conditions or circumstances, partly because we're not sure of the laws that control us, or that the laws that we operate within. We know about gravity, and that's obvious, but other laws are not quite so easy to identify or to recognize or to even be sure of. Nevertheless, I think we experience cause and effect in our lives. And if we don't like the result or the effect, we don't try and change the result. If you're not getting along with somebody, there's not much point in trying to get along better with them and change the result, change the outcome. You really need to identify the cause. And if you change the cause, you're going to get a different result. And ideally one that you're happier with. So I think we should remember that people, and we are people, you and I are both people. People are wise. So if we can accept that we already know the cause, okay, so we're in a certain situation, we're not sure of what's going on. If we recognize that we already know the cause, even though it may not be in our conscious mind, if we know the cause, and if we pay attention to our thoughts and our inspirations and our ideas and what we notice about people and situations, we're going to discover or know what the cause is. And that means we can then make big or small changes depending on what's required. So that's one point. Cause and effect works in our lives, and we can come to recognize it. At the same time, we're all creative, even if we don't think so, or even if we don't seem to be creative because we live an ordinary, regular life. But when I say creative, I don't mean Picasso creative, right? So just because you don't paint or sculpt, that doesn't mean you're not creative, because we all have ideas and thoughts, and later they come about. But the things that come about, the things that happen, they start with somebody's idea or somebody's thought. And that person with the thought or the idea organized other people, and they organized stuff to make it happen, whatever it happened to be that they wanted. Or maybe they put ideas into the minds of other people and got everybody working together to produce the result that they wanted. And that's being creative. Because things don't just happen by themselves. They don't. We may not like it. We may think there's not a lot we can do about it, but these things don't just happen by themselves. We play a part. We maybe set the ball rolling in different areas of our life, even if we're not aware of it. We set the ball rolling. So people can be married and you think, okay, let's have a child. And then later they have a child. They produce one, all going well. Or maybe people think, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to get fired. And eventually, or it often happens that they lose their job. But how much of it was a self-fulfilling prophecy? They imagine, so the thing, there's something in somewhere about the thing that I feared the most has come to pass. So there's something you're afraid of. So you fear it and you give it energy and you give it life. This fear thing you're afraid of happening, and you give it your life and it becomes a fact because you fed it, or to a large extent because you fed it. Cause and effect. You feed the fear, it happens. So I'm not saying that results and effects always happen immediately, and we only have to think something to get the result in the world. Because it may be better to think of the idea of what we want or what we fear. Think of it as a seed that we plant. And in time, if we want it, let it grow over time. And it's going to turn into whatever kind of seed it was. Whereas if it's a fear, we plant it, but we don't water it. We let it shrivel up and be absorbed back into the earth. We can also, when I think about it, consider a reading. So in a reading, the reader is planting seeds in the mind of the questioner. So in a reading, you talk about possibilities and what can be, so that when the questioner goes home, they go off and the possibilities that have been planted in their mind, they take root and they happen, or they turn out to be true and factual. So effects or conditions that we experience in life, they have a cause. And if we identify the cause and make a change, we get different effects. So let's say we imagine living a fuller life in our own chosen way. So what I think of of as a fuller life can be very different from what you would consider to be a fuller life. But either way, if we imagine a fuller life and work towards it, or have confidence in our vision, it's going to happen, because there's a cause and effect. We're energizing the cause, or we're energizing our vision and giving it life, and the effect goes together with the cause. But at the same time, if we have moments of doubt, or real serious doubts, and we think, it didn't work in the past, so it's maybe it won't, it's probably not going to work in the future, right? So, forget about it. It's not going to work. We're also helping to bring about a lack of success and a narrower life. So we should monitor the thoughts that we think. And a while ago, there was something, I can't remember what it was, but it had to do with write down as many emotions as you can think of in the space of 1 minute. And most of what people write down for emotions are negative: pain, fear, anxiety, doubt, all the rest of it. But there's happiness, ecstasy, excitement, enjoyment, pleasure. But people tend to be more negative, or to be more, to recognize more often when things are bad than when they're good, and not appreciate when things are good. So it's easier to come up with negatives than it is with positives. So if you think of each thought that you have as a string pulling you in one direction, then if you think contradictory thoughts like, I want a promotion, but I don't think I'm good enough, or other people are better qualified than I am, that's 3 strings, but they're going to pull you in different directions. So you're going to end up with a tangled mess of string, right? But if you're consistent about the promotion and what you bring to the job and what you want for yourself and what you want your future to be like, the threads gather around each other and turn into a rope. So if we decide what we want and where we're going, and we stick to it, we stick with it, we get there. But we have doubts and fears, or we've been talked into believing that we can't, or we shouldn't, or we're going to get a reward in heaven, so don't expect too much here and now. That kind of stuff that people tell you. And that's one way of looking at things, but it's not really life or living. Because life is about expansion. You take an apple seed and you plant it, and it grows into a tree that produces an abundance of apples. And each of these apples that is produced becomes a creator in its own right, and produces seeds within the new apples, which can then grow into more trees. That's life. It's expansion. It's not digging in and holding yourself back and holding yourself down and holding on for some future that's never going to happen. So if we begin to doubt, it's because we're bringing in the past. But we should draw a line under the past, because in the past we were doubters. And if we look to the past, we're just going to confuse ourselves, and we're going to transport this doubtful past into the future. But it's a future, when we look at it, it's clean and it's clear. If and when we stick to what we want, because the future is filled with unlimited possibilities. When you think of what's brought development in the world, it was forward thinking. So the fellow who invented the steam engine didn't think, okay, people have never moved at 30 miles an hour, so in the past, so it's not going to happen, it's not possible. He didn't think that. The future was full of unlimited possibilities, and one of them was the possibility of speed and steam engines. So then that gives us railway trains and the whole bit. We're creative. Each of us is creative, and we can imagine possibilities and improvements and better conditions for everybody. And we don't have to be tied to or held back by the past. So when we look at our own personal past, what's going on so far in our lives, there were disappointments or upsets or things that we wish hadn't happened. So maybe we wish we were Superman and we could fly backwards around the world and reverse time and undo certain things But it isn't like that. The past is the past, and you can't change it, but you can draw a line under it and start a fresh page, knowing two things. There's cause and effect, and we're creative. We can decide what we're going to do, or what we want to get, or where we're going, and where we want to end up, or the direction that we want to go in, and we can stick to it. And the same way that the cup that will inevitably fall to the floor if I let it go, you're going to get what you want if and because you focus on the future and monitor yourself and your thoughts, and make sure you spend time with thoughts that you want and entertain only thoughts that you want. So instead of asking if it's okay to do something, decide what you want. Trust yourself to make a correct decision. And if you later find out it's not quite what you wanted, you've learned something. So you're in a good position to think again and to make a new decision. And that's going to make you automatically closer to what's correct. And if you have to make a second or a third or a fourth change, that's okay. And that's good, because it means you're getting closer to what's real for you. Okay, that was something about cause and effect and about us, I think. I'd like your comments or questions so I can do the next step with these ideas or develop them a bit. So I'm thinking a new video next weekend, which will be October 24th or 25th. So if you want to contribute something or have a comment or a question, put it in the comments down below, and I'll work something up based on the comments that you have for next week. So until then, have a good week. Okay, bye-bye.